I guess you could say this is episode 1001. The name's been changed to Tales from the Crypt. Tales from the Cryptid. You know, the first time I heard somebody say the word cryptid, I thought they were talking about like coding or something, like they were going to encrypt something. But my understanding of cryptid is, like an animal or species that exists, but it hasn't been proved by science. It's a little softer on the ears than saying Bigfoot or Sasquatch. But I'm going to spend a little more time up here in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm getting ready to shift gears into some other topics like cryptids and missing persons and good and evil. There's a lot of content out there right now. What drew me in were some of these sightings that people have in the woods. A lot of times when people see something in the woods that they don't understand, and they try to call law enforcement or like a game warden, weird things start to happen to people, and the stories that they tell about their experiences, it kind of lured me in further. And I eventually landed on um, Can-Am. They talk a lot about missing persons, people that walk into the woods like with other people, around them, and they go missing, and they're never found again, or people wander into the woods and they're not found for years, and then they find their body that's been dead for years with their clothes folded up beside them. And it's like, these type of stories don't get out on the news, and the park services try to cover this stuff up, from what I understand. I'm not trying to stir that pot. I'm just saying, I live in Portland. I spent some time this last weekend out. I started out west of Mount Hood. I went all the way around to the east side of Hood, northeast side of Mount Hood, and there's some pretty interesting things going on out there in all aspects. There's things going on out there that I didn't even know of. There's various cultures of like ski resort parking lot dwellers, which actually looked like they were having a pretty good time. But I found some other back roads with some people camping, and I don't judge, but there's just some strange things. And got a video that I'm gonna release at some point. Got a few people I need to get with before I do that. But I think the main focus on Tales from the Cryptid, I plan on taking some interviews, taking some phone calls, doing some research. The ultimate goal is to do research like I did this last weekend. There was a hiker that the last place he was known to be was Frog Lake out by Mount Hood. He had parked his car at the parking lot there, right where you get on the Pacific Crest Trail, and he was never found. And he was from Milwaukee, Oregon. And I wanted to go out there and I wanted to see that, and other things ended up happening. But there's I had a lot of focus towards recovery and victory stories and people changing their lives, and I'm just at a spot now where my journey with God has grown into it's just all experience at this point, just things that I experience with God, just little private things that I experience with God, and I share these things with people. But I've tried to stay out on the forefront of my emotional journey and really grind at it. And it's at some point you get to a point to where you realize your goals can be achieved with just you and God, and it's not really about running things by people anymore. I mean, it's good to have friends, but if you ask God to guide you, I believe that things start to fall in place as long as I'm not stubborn. And that's kind of how I landed on this. A guy has a podcast. Um, his name's Lance. He does a podcast. I won't say the name of his podcast, but it's really good. And I did an interview with him, and he seems to think that um, things are either good and evil, and I think that too. I think there's things out there as far as cryptids. I think there may be species we haven't discovered, but I don't think that's quite it. I think if you go through the Bible and read about the Nephilim and all those things, I think there's more there than people want to understand. But as far as I'm concerned, I think that when it comes to evil and demonic presences or whatever, I think God could confront somebody with whatever he wanted. I mean, the devil's real. Who's to say that things don't exist out in the woods? I mean, if you're not living the way you're supposed to, the temptations in a big city would be like drugs and gangs and violence and all that sort of things. But people that aren't living right, that live out in the country, may encounter different types of evil. And I just, based on my own experience, I'm certain that things dwell or can manifest. And I want to hear anybody's stories about cryptids or things they've seen in the woods. You can leave a message on here and I'll get back with you. I guess I need to come up with a phone number for you guys to call and leave a message. But if you've had any type of encounter or any type of questions about things, whether you're in Oregon or Oklahoma or wherever you are, definitely you can send me an email at portloco2021@gmail.com. And the missing persons, that there's so much there when it comes to missing persons. There's so many people, and there's a lot of guys out there that do research that kind of have missing persons filtered down, like, you know, anything that has to do with like an animal encounter. Those aren't on the list. Like, there's a working list out there of missing persons that make absolutely no sense. Even the search and rescue teams will tell you that just, it's almost like these people were swallowed up by rocks or killed by something, or maybe they just disappeared. Maybe God took them. I don't know. But it's huge out here in Portland. I'm in Portland. I'm about 50, 60 miles west of Mount Hood. Just between here and there. There's so much wilderness there. Anyway, just a little introduction to the direction I'm going to go. I'm going to call this show Tales from the Cryptid. I'm going to be taking phone calls. I'll be doing interviews with anybody that's had any type of experience. It could be paranormal, you know, spiritual. It could be a cryptid encounter. You know, anybody that has any information on any type of missing person case. I just wanted to put a little something out there. I don't know who's going to come across it, but you got to start somewhere, right? I do appreciate the support.